Hi, I'm Jessica with the Santa Paula Art Museum, and welcome to Art Club. This project is called Poinsettia Prints. Today we are going to make some really beautiful flowers and learn a fun printing technique and learn about the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia O'Keeffe was an American artist who was very famous all around the world, and she is celebrated as an American treasure, something Americans were very proud of. She was also a woman artist at the time, when there were very few women who were famous artists, so she was a pioneer, someone who was doing things before other people did. Georgia loved to paint flowers, but she painted them differently from everyone else. She got up really close to them so she could see all the amazing and beautiful design that nature had made. She was very famous for her close-up flower paintings. So that's what we're going to do today. We are making some flower images by showing them really up close, just like Georgia O'Keeffe. For the supplies, you'll be needing a sponge and you'll use acrylic in both green and red. You'll also need a yellow pastel or crayon, a water brush, and paper napkins. Let's get started. For our first step, let's use your sponge as a placeholder because we're going to make the top left corner poinsettia first. So giving some space off from the edges, we're going to make a flower on that left corner. Using my yellow pastel, I'm going to draw 5 dots for the center of our poinsettia. Next, using the sponge to distance the left and the right flower, we're going to make a right flower and add 5 dots to the center. The top corner might look a little empty, so we'll add another flower on the right that's going to go off the page. Again, use the sponge to distance the flowers. It's no big deal if they overlap a little bit. Using the sponge, we're going to get started on our printmaking. That's an art trick for the sponge, using it both as a placeholder and also to estimate how long the petals are going to be so that we can put our flowers apart. So this next step is me using the sponge and using very little paint, barely touching the surface of the sponge, because we're going to be making the petals. So using one of the 3 plates, by making a circular motion go across the plate until you feel the sponge surface does not have any extra paint resting on it. Next step is to take the sponge and stamp onto the paper the petals of the first left poinsettia, and we're going to repeat pressing down and making sure that all sides are even when you're pressing down on the sponge, and press completely all over the sponge so you get a beautiful full petal. And we're going to make about 6 to 7 petals onto your paper for your poinsettia using the technique for printmaking. This is a great example of our vocabulary word, printmaking. Printmaking is when you make your image in one material and then you transfer that image to your final artwork. So we have these sponges that are a petal shape. So the image starts with the sponge. Then we put some paint on that sponge and press it into the paper, and we transfer that image onto the paper. That is printmaking. So we are going to make many transfers of this petal shape onto our paper, and when we put all the petals together, we are making a flower image by practicing printmaking. The next step, we're going to add the petals to the right poinsettia flower, and again, add 6 to 7 petals. Don't forget to evenly press the sponge so that your full petals will transfer. Here you can see that I like to press like 3 to 4 fingers onto the sponge so that I can move and wiggle a little the sponge so that I get the full print. Great, the next step is to reload the paint onto your sponge using the same technique of using the plate and making sure that the extra paint is off the sponge, and we're going to add the petals to the off-page poinsettia. The petals might overlap, but that's not too bad. So if that does happen, just go ahead and print that petal so that they overlap a little. Great! Moving on to the last step of our project, we're going to use another clean plate and another clean sponge to start the printmaking once again, but this time with the green acrylic paint. This is going to be to make our leaves on our poinsettias. Next, start off by dipping the sponge into the green acrylic. Again, just a little bit to cover the surface of the sponge, and use the clean plate in a circular motion to get rid of the extra green paint on the sponge. Then we're going to start making the leaves. And you'll see how nice green and red complement each other. They're such festive colors too for the holidays. For this step, it would be nice to have a small bunch of 2 leaves on one side of your poinsettia, or maybe even just a single leaf. We're about almost done with our project, and I just want to add small details. Like if your bottom corner looks a bit empty, we can add a couple petals to show that there's flowers coming off the page, and that might solve our problem. So that was our project Poinsettia prints, and I hope you enjoyed it and learning how to use a sponge for printmaking. I hope to see you in the next video. Now the very last step of our project is to add a little bit more color to our poinsettias. So let's give it a blue background with some blue acrylic paint, and we don't have to have a heavy coat, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to dilute the acrylic paint with a little bit of water so that it becomes like a watercolor wash background. And you can see that I keep going back into my jar of water so that I can add water with that acrylic paint. And what you want to do is you just want to mix both of them together so that it just becomes a little more diluted, meaning the color is less strong. I'm going to carefully go around my poinsettia and make an outline so that I can paint over all that empty space, but I don't paint over my poinsettias. So just carefully take your time and make the outline and then color in those portions where you want to make sure that your background color is showing. Great. And so it looks like our Poinsettia print project is done. I hope you had fun in this project, and I'll see you in the next video.